Are there any movies that you seriously disagree with everyone else on? I'm sure everyone has one or two, and I'm no different. Usually if everyone else likes or dislikes a movie, I'm pretty much guaranteed to be on the bandwagon, but of course there are exceptions, so my next pair of lists will be highlighting a few of them. First, I'm going to talk about the top 10 movies that I can't stand, but everyone else seems to enjoy them. So I hope I don't badmouth any of your favourite movies here. Or if I do, let's hope I can explain myself well enough. So these are the top 10 movies that I hate, but everyone else seems to love. Number 10, The Goonies. This is kind of like a kid's version of Indiana Jones. And that's my main problem with it. As a kid, I never even heard of this movie. I didn't discover it until I was in college, and it was so obviously geared towards kids alone that it was just embarrassing. Although when I say it's meant for kids, I really can't be sure. The kids in the movie are pretty foul-mouthed. It's really just that it was far less mature than I was expecting. I might warm up to it more if I watch it again. That's why it's only number 10. Number 9, Witness. I first saw this one in secondary school in a hall with really bad acoustics, so that certainly didn't help. Now, to its credit, I can understand why it won an Oscar for Best Screenplay. It's a simple but theoretically effective fish-out-of-water story. But what really kills it for me is the performance. The dialogue is in that deliberately simplistic style that just does not sound natural, and it really makes the acting seem wooden. That, and I just didn't warm up to the Amish environment, even though Harrison Ford's character does. The premise is promising, but it really fell flat for me. Number 8, A Ghost Story. On Netflix, this was described as cerebral and understated, and by that they mean torturously, cripplingly boring. It's the kind of slow-paced filmmaking that usually goes down well with critics, but to me, it makes things seem so static that it's almost like the movie itself is dead. On top of that, the moment the ghost first appeared, I burst out laughing. I mean, a sheet with eye holes? Did they really expect us to take that seriously? I know the idea is that it's the sheet he was under in the morgue, but it's still on par with a child's Halloween costume. Number 7, Rango. I guess I commend this movie for trying to make a western for kids, but it's just not a fun film to watch. It's a very dark movie, which I don't usually complain about, but here it just seems downright mean-spirited. There's not really anything good to offset it. No good humor, no good virtues, nothing. That and the main character is the most annoying kind of screw-up. You just end up wanting to smack him. When you're not reeling in terror from those unblinking eyes, that is. Between this and Pirates of the Caribbean, Gore Verbinski should not be allowed to make kids' movies. Number 6, The Florida Project. For all this movie's critical praise and being branded an Oscar snub, I found it utterly unbearable. Quite simply, I've seldom hated a cast of characters this much. The kids are loud, obnoxious hellions who had me screaming, "Shut up, shut up, shut up!" within minutes. And the mother is a truly despicable human being who deserves every beatdown that will come her way. The narrative style makes it even worse. Because it has no defined structure, it makes me feel inescapably stuck with people I can't stand. Even the ending, which people have told me made them cry. Don't even get me started. Number 5, Notting Hill. I liked Hugh Grant in 4 Weddings and a Funeral, but by God is he irritating here. I just want to punch him in the face every time he doesn't know when to shut up. Plus, this movie has a very downbeat, somber tone that just kind of bores and depresses me. I guess it's supposed to reflect the cruelty of life, but I don't buy it. The story is a cliched Hollywood romance and shouldn't be treated any differently. When the movie does crack a joke, it either makes me cringe, especially the horse and hound business, or just sit there in awkward silence. Number 4, Bridesmaids. I never understood why this garnered so much praise among critics and audiences alike. My issues with it all stem from one simple problem. Every single character is a complete arsehole. So if you're not rooting for either side, the rivalry that dominates the story falls completely flat and just comes across as immature bickering. I think it's all summed up in two early scenes, the tennis game and Annie and Helen trying to upstage each other. I honestly can't believe how selfish these characters are. I love the scene where Lillian tells Annie basically to grow up. My sentiments exactly. Number 3, Napoleon Dynamite. Now, when I first saw this and announced on Facebook how much I hated it, people were downright appalled. They were like, how dare you? So I guess this movie really struck a chord with some people, but I just straight up couldn't stand it. And again, a lot of that comes from the main character, who is one of the most pathetic, least likable protagonists ever. It's people like him that give nerds a bad name. That and the movie doesn't have a very lively tone. The actors all look so dead-eyed that it just seems like they really don't want to be there. Number 2, Borat. This is another one that leaves people stunned when I say I didn't like it. But the fact is, the character of Borat annoys the eternal fuck out of me. I don't care if his actions are supposed to be annoying, they're still not fun to watch. To me, there's a limit to how stupid or naive a character can be before he stops being funny, and Borat doesn't just cross that line, he leaves it in the fucking dust. Also, what was up with his comment that Pamela Anderson has the asshole of a 7-year-old? How is implied paedophilia supposed to be funny? And the number 1 movie that I hate but everyone else seems to love is Anchorman. God, hate this movie! You know, I'm starting to realize that most of the higher ranking movies on this list are comedies that just don't appeal to my sense of humor, and this movie is the complete opposite of what I find funny. I've been told that it appeals to everyone else because it embraces the silly side of all of us. Well, maybe I'm just such a snob that I can't stand silliness full stop. Or maybe it's just that these actors have no charm whatsoever. After all, Monty Python gets very silly too, but I love those movies. Perhaps because the actors are much more charismatic and dignified, so they can pull it off. But here it just comes off as vulgar. Either way, I simply don't find Anchorman funny. What can I say? Of all the movies on this list, this is the one that people seem to celebrate the most, which is why it's an easy fit for the number 1 spot. Honorable mention, Transformers. I could have put any of Michael Bay's atrocities on this list, but this one seems to be the most popular. All the traits that plague Michael Bay's oeuvre are on display here. The acting across the board is horrendous, and the camera work and editing is just a random mess, which sucks the entertainment out of the action scenes because it just makes them harder to see. Still, I can't muster that much hatred for this one, it's just kind of underwhelming. The sequels, on the other hand, can promptly burn in the deepest pit of hell, and Michael Bay right along with them. And those are the top 10 movies that I hate but everyone else seems to love, and before you go too nuts about it, the reverse situation is coming up later this week. Next time, I'm going to do the top 10 movies that I like but everyone else seems to hate, so stay tuned.